What's up, guys? Continuing on the train of the Brutalist, switching over from Hopeful Warm Help back to Healthy Believable Matters, because at the center of the Brutalist is the relationship, I think, between László and Erzsébet, in a subtle way. Sort of. It's like the explicit messaging of the film is immigrant trying to make his way in 1960s US and trying to be a genius whilst being disrespected. And that's the explicit messaging of the film. That's the draw to watch it. But underneath that is what does feel like a very, very real portrayal of what a healthy long-term relationship might look like. Which is blue, by the way. And I can't remember exactly how long it says László and Erzsébet have been married. Obviously a very, very long time. And it's like, it is very honest in showing that it's not like they reconnect like super easily once she gets to the US, and they have their genuine disagreements, even though those disagreements are at the same time them trying to look out for each other, coming from different lenses. And you also have the genuine element of the amount of hardships that these two people are having to overcome. And just think about the fact that the first half of the film, she is not on screen in any capacity. And the connection is still maintained through writings and faith and the connection beneath all of that. The camps alone, the disrespect of coming here, the László's drug problem. The only element that in terms of like unhealthy, like off the top, is that she doesn't tell him about the being incapacitated. Not that that's a judgment in any way at all, but like honesty in terms of a relationship should be paramount, but there's also understanding why that's done. Forget the actual dialogue as to why she didn't, because I think she knows that like it upset him, but that's something you watch them try to like work through that. These problems do pop up in any long-term relationship. The only element that I docket, and this is the main thing that's keeping it from being a purple or higher, is that, you don't want to watch the film and come away with the motif that if you and your long-term partner are misattuned and you're sort of struggling to reconnect, well, if you take drugs and accidentally overdose on them, then you will find your way back to each other. Which isn't necessarily what it's saying. The fact that she almost overdoses there and he almost loses her is the final domino to make him tell her his truth. I think he told her the truth while he was in the stupor, but he commits to leaving the US. Because I forget the line is he says, "You're my world," and that feels very raw and honest, that you have the brush of losing your love. That's where you go all in, because you have that brush with it. but there's also the element of, well, because they took the drugs that enabled him to tell her his truth, and they were able to reconnect physically after having trouble doing that during the bulk of the film, or for the bulk of the film. Which, like, there's some wiggle room there. There's plenty of arguments to be made in terms of, in the real world, of having a, light amount of alcohol, or, light amount of weed, or something to, lower inhibitions in order to break that activation energy, to then make the connection, because once you've made the connection, then everything comes back, and then you can be all in with each other again. But, like, this is heroin, and she almost dies, and, like, that's you're towing a really fine line with that. So, for that reason, it's like a bit of a false step, I think, even though for an otherwise blue, in terms of healthy relationship, it does feel believable now. I can't speak of that for myself. I've never been in a relationship that's lasted decades. But in terms of either watching my parents, or watching relatives, or hearing stories from grandparents, or what have you, is that life is going to hit you with lots of shit, and really working at it and working through it with your partner is the way, if not the only way, to purely lock in the bond, if you will. And those who make it are the ones that work through that stuff successfully. So for that much, it does feel believable. Their fights do feel believable. Even at the end of the day, even when they're fighting, it's clear that they love each other. I don't feel like you ever doubt that at any point in the film. So, those, like, Mom, I know you're watching this, so if that feels believable, or anyone else watching it who's been in a decades-long relationship, I say green on that. Again, the drugs thing, and I'm saying green only because I can't really say proof of concept myself. But it does feel believable at the very least, and matters. If not for the drug scene, I'd say blue or higher. If because of it, I'll say green, because I think especially for the young generation, in the same way, I love seeing, like, I just rewatched Schitt's Creek a few months ago, and that also feels like a very different context, but I feel like there was a trend in, like, the 90s, 2000s, in which the leads were often always young, and older couples were kind of shafted off to the side, and medias and shows and what have you was often all about finding love as opposed to maintaining it. And, like, I'm forgetting the names, but the pilot and the first mate in Firefly would be another example of just showing a marriage that is healthy in all its complexities in media. Like, we should be doing more of it, and that matters to show it. and it matters to show a couple weathering everything that life can throw at them and coming out the other side. Even though, like, if you're going to do that drug scene, I would have made the messaging more clear in that, because, like, it is heroin and she almost died. So, like, that's the only false note for me in the entire film. So yeah, I mean, Adrian Brody gets all the praise, but Felicity Jones is fantastic in the movie. I feel like she doesn't get talked about enough. Probably because like Zoe Saldana and Ariana Grande got all the coverage in terms of supporting actress, but like, don't sleep on Felicity Jones, because like, in some ways she steals the movie in the second half. That's not hyperbole. So, anyway, that's what I have to say about that with regards to the Brutalist. Back on hopeful warm health next time. Hope you all enjoyed watching, and see you around.